as we like to say, we hope to see you.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Councilor Condon. Councilor Crowe. Councilor Linehan. Councilor McDonald. Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Seca. Councilor Simonelli. Councilor Spatafora. Councilor Winslow. Councilor President Barbara Murphy.
Here. And before we begin, we are going to rise for a moment of another moment of silence.
So I'd like to do a moment of silence for Diane Rotundi, a lifelong Award 4 resident. She's a devoted sister of Robert D. Rotundi of Malden. She was very active in Babe Ruth baseball here in Malden. She worked as a legal secretary at Ropes and Gray. She's really sorely missed in Ward 4, and I thank you for the moment of silence on behalf of Diane.
So for those looking at the agenda, I am going to take something out of order here. For those of you who attend these meetings, you'll know that normally when we invite someone in to speak as a guest, one of the councilors has put in a resolve that is agreed upon by all of the councilors up here. Due to the fact that we did lose a week with little technical issues that we had, and last week being a committee of the whole where we couldn't vote anything, we're going to take the resolve out of order for us to hear from the folks at the Malden Hospital and the new site development. So, clerk, if you would read 4423, please, the resolve.
Paper 4423, resolved that it is the sense of the City Council that they wish to invite representatives from Tufts Medical and the Mayor's Office to appear to provide an update on the open space component of the proposed redevelopment of the old Malden Hospital site.
On Councilor Linehan's motion to pass the resolve, all those seconded by Councilor Simonelli, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The resolve has been passed. Okay, so next order of business, 4523, please.
Well, do you want to go back to the guests and have one come up onto the podium? We're jumping back over to, we just voted on this, now we're going to jump back over to.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Representatives from Tufts Medical and the Mayor's Office will appear before the Council to provide an update on the open space component of the proposed redevelopment of the old Malden Hospital site. If you would step to the podium.
Mr. Hogan, if you'd come up, please. I just want to make sure you're on. There you go, Mr. Hogan.
You guys hear me? So thank you. So, you know, this is a project that I've been involved in from the early discussions that we had with the Tufts folks about, you know, what's been, I think, put out in the public at this point about the proposed redevelopment of the site to a behavioral health hospital. And Councilor Linehan and I have been in almost constant contact about the piece of this that we know is of great interest to the public, the open space piece. And so the intent for tonight is really just to give what should be a brief update on where that stands. We know it's a piece that's of great interest to folks, a little bit of a change in path of how we've got to approach that piece, and give just this body an opportunity to ask any questions on that piece. We do have Laurie Howley from Tufts Medicine with us, as well as Sean Curran from Waterville Consultants. So just to the extent that any questions come up, they're here to answer those. And again, certainly if something comes up on the project in general, they can answer those also. But we are hoping just to focus on the open space piece. So just, you know, kind of way of background, and I think some of this you all know just from what's in the public, but we haven't really spoken about it before this body. You know, Tufts and Acadia Healthcare have entered into a joint agreement to build a behavioral health hospital up at the site of the old Malden Hospital. You know, community engagement on prior projects that, of course, identified the desire for the neighborhood to have open space contained within any proposal. And so early on when we met with the folks from, from Tufts and Sean from Waterville, it was always their desire to put forward a proposal that included carving some of the space out for open space. So there was a proactive part of the plan that was proposed in the beginning, even if we knew we had to figure out exactly how we would go ahead and get that piece done. So from the very beginning, their proposal had identified almost 10 acres of land to be set aside as open space. About 6.7 acres of that are in Malden, about 2.9 acres are in Medford. A little bit of a different approach on both pieces. The Malden piece has always been intended to be something that we would acquire. And again, I'll speak a little bit to the process by which we'll go about that. And then the Medford piece is designed to be just conservation land that they would retain ownership of. It's on the sort of the backside of the current hospital, and I'll show you a little bit with an image. But the intent has always been sort of a two-pronged approach. They've had multiple community meetings, some of them here in this chamber, and some of them with the Friends of Fellsmere Heights to try to get feedback from folks. And so over the course of the last few months, we've been on what I'll call parallel paths as Tufts pursues the permitting and the local approval process for the project, and then we've at the same time been working to try to figure out this open space piece and how we would go about executing on the commitment they've made to make a piece available to be acquired by us. So just you can kind of see just an overview of the site to just kind of orient you. Sometimes it's easier just to see the image, the piece we're speaking about, and you can see the I guess it's blue. I'm colorblind, but the blue piece that kind of is over to the left and then kind of wraps around is the piece that is right now identified to be carved out and acquired by us to be used as open space. It's about 6.7 acres. A good portion of it is, sort of hilly area that really provides some opportunity for connectivity to Fellsmere Park. But about 3 acres of it is relatively flat and would be, suitable for some sort of development for, and I don't mean development, but some sort of open space programming, I guess is a better way to put it, for, to benefit the community through an effort led by the city and the community. So it's oftentimes folks say, well, how much is 3 acres? It's not that much different. It's probably not quite as flat as like the size of Trafton Park or even Amherst Park, right? So that's about the acreage that you're talking about. Granted, those are a little bit more flat. So, fairly substantial piece of land. And as I mentioned, the 2.9 acres within Medford that sits on the backside is designed to be, left as a buffer between the back of the redevelopment and then the neighborhood back there. I do know they're working on a change. You can see in the graphic the sort of parking that wraps around Hospital Row that I think was the source of some discussion with some of the neighborhood folks who are hoping to reduce some of that parking, and I think they're going to be making some updates there to kind of shrink that up and add some of that land into the piece that we would look to acquire. So I think it's going to get, the piece that we're talking about is going to get a little bit bigger from here, but they're still working on trying to finalize exactly what that may look like. So, sort of where we've been at is all along we've been on the same page about the what, and the what is what I just spoke about, right? We want to acquire it, we want to own it, and it's about 6.7 acres. When we started meeting with the folks from Tufts early on, we had somebody at the table with us from an organization called the Trust for Public Land, and they're an organization that works with communities to help communities, obtain and acquire open space to be able to, just for this exact purpose. So, we were excited about that because they were an organization that does this. They're experts in where the funds are available to be able to make the acquisition, and all along the desire has been to have the site appraised and for us to be able to acquire it utilizing, like I said, third-party, grant opportunities through the Trust for Public Land to be able to go ahead and acquire it. So they sat alongside us through multiple meetings. Unfortunately, and this is part of the reason why we're here tonight, is just, sort of full transparency. They've had some staffing challenges and let us know that they weren't going to be able to help us with that acquisition process, and that we were going to be have to be figuring that out as sort of a self-led effort. We did reach out to another organization and met with them multiple times, as recently as even last week with, it's called the Trustees of the Reservation, again, another organization that helps with the acquisition of open space. And similarly to these folks, they've said, look, we just don't have the capacity, to help with that right now. So we are, and part of the reason why we're here tonight is just to make sure, and everybody is aware, because we're gonna transition to a model whereby that we, through the Deb Burke's department, OSPCD, and work with Emily Granoff, we will now transition to really a self-managed process to work through applying for grants to try to, to try to execute upon that piece of acquiring the land through, we have reached out to the folks for the Trust for Public Land to kind of tell us some of the sources they would have used, and of course, we'll try to pursue some of those, but it'll be led by us as opposed to led by an organization that we hope, was going to be able to, really in a lot of ways do a lot of it for us. So, sort of where we go from here, as I mentioned, is we've got two things we're figuring out. We're gonna start quickly down that path of identifying some of the different sources of money. I mentioned earlier, there are appraisals that have been done on the site that just really provide a range. I can tell you that the Tufts folks all along have been committed to this piece of it. None of that has changed, one iota. It's just a matter of how we get from point A to point B. And so we'll work through that process of documenting that. At the same time, we're working with our legal department and KP Law on just the method of acquisition, right? So again, there's the how, how do you pay for the piece, and then what's the legal process that you go through it, right? Because it's either going to be some sort of friendly eminent domain taking that the two parties work through, but there's a process that we have to go through. We can't just, turn around and acquire a piece of land. In the meantime, our goal is to execute a letter of intent to memorialize that commitment, right? Because, certainly as Tufts goes through the permitting process with the planning board, we want to make sure that piece of this is solidified and everybody understands that none of that's changed. It hasn't changed in even the least. It's just a matter of, we're going to need some time to figure that out while they go through the permitting process. And so we'll work on an agreement that captures that process and makes it clear what the parameters of that are as we try to go through that. And, part of that will probably include engaging the Community Preservation Committee, who Council Lanahan and I have spoken about the fact that, this is sort of one of the things that fund was created for, was to help acquire open space. And it's likely that even as we identify some grant opportunities, that there'll be some need to provide some sort of match and figure out how to combine all these different resources that we can bring to the table and try to sort of figure that last piece out. So, the intent really here, guys, is to just let you know, as you sort of wonder about that open space piece, there was a plan A, and we're now heading down the path of a plan B, and the plan B is, one that we will absolutely get to the same finish line. It's just going to be a little bit more work for us than we had probably hoped it would be when we had these folks that were telling us that don't worry about it, we do this all the time. But it doesn't change the end result, and that's the path we're going to head down from here on in a very open and transparent way. So that's really what I had.
Okay. Councilor O'Malley.
Do you want something first? Sorry, I didn't know we were over. So it sounds like funding is where we're at right now. And then what is is there an agreed upon acquisition cost?
Yeah, no, so Council, they've got a range of valuations that really depend upon which use you use to value it, right? And so, full disclosure, right? Our goal is to, have them get as close to the maximum value without it being our money, right? So a lot of it depends upon what the parameters are of the particular grants and what they might be able to fund. But there's a low end and there's a high end depending upon which use you use to develop it. The low end obviously is, sort of conservation, sort of restricted public use. And then the high end is the valuation that the two parties agreed to when Tufts put the land into the deal, between them and the partner, right? So we're not interested in that. We're more interested in the, the lower end, but we have a pretty good idea of what that parameter is, and we'll figure out where we get within that range.
And is the acquisition of the open space needed to pay for the building, or is it separate?
It's separate. So, again, Tufts is certainly, like anybody going into any business arrangement, and I think anybody that's followed the last year in healthcare knows that it was a pretty rough year for anybody that's in the healthcare business. So, they've been pretty transparent about the hope and desire to try to work together with us to identify sources of money that can help them, monetize that as much as they can, while recognizing that their commitment to making sure that this is part of the equation isn't dependent upon that. So we're going to try to work with them in a very proactive way to try to maximize that, but it's not going to be something that's not going to happen because of that. We're going to find a way to get there one way or the other, and it's just a matter of where that needle ends up.
And then the only other question I had is, I know that on the Medford side, there's some encroachment on the far side of the property. Would we be able to work with the facility owner to like make sure that the other part of the parcel is maybe coordinated well? I know that there was past talks about maybe doing some trails, cleaning it up, removing trash. I'm assuming that that's something we can have some type of shared maintenance agreement.
Do you mean, so Sean, I don't know if that's something he can probably.
Councilors, thank you. My name is Sean Curran, and I'm a consultant to the hospital group. What we intend to do for that portion of the land is put a permanent conservation restriction, but then contribute it to the overall community plan. So when the community makes a decision about what should happen up there from a programming perspective, whether they want to make it an active space or a passive space, both the Medford and Malden communities would make that decision, and we would live with that decision. One of the things that Ron talked about, the separateness of the open space compared to the hospital structure and the impervious surfaces like the parking area and others, these are two separate things from our perspective. The hospital's core competency is not managing open space, and so what we'd like to do is contribute the elements that are on the Malden side, but we would also like to contribute for the planning purposes the elements that are on the Medford side, so that this can be a consistent, programmable open space.
Thank you. And one other question. Do we know about, or maybe we have like test pits or like sampling been done? Like, do we know what the potential liabilities are on the property, like from a Chapter 21E contamination perspective?
Yeah, so we've done drilling, so we've got samples, soil samples, and all of that is being examined by the engineering team. Part of the entire demolition process for some of the buildings is going to involve being able to come forward with evidence of what contaminants exist, and we'll have to obviously clean that up, not just based on city standards for construction and development projects, but also for the state and the federal.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Councilor Linehan, did you want to say anything before I go on to all the other councilors?
I also just wanted to kind of hear what the questions were too. I mostly just wanted to sort of ground the conversation in thanks to the advocacy community that has pushed so hard for this open space component. I see that we have a lot of members of Friends of Fellsmere Heights and some of our original advocates that pushed for the CPC to come to Malden all those years ago, and I think this site, you know, was really a key motivator for bringing that funding to the city. And you know, what we're looking to do now will be grounded in the same type of community engagement that these advocacy groups have been leading us through right through the meetings that we've had this summer and this fall on the project. So just wanted to really express that appreciation and also share a commitment from my end to continue engaging the community and reiterate that if folks haven't been able to join the meetings that we've had, those are all posted. The recordings and the PowerPoints are posted at cityofmalden.org/Malden Hospital Project. So, you know, feel free to get caught up to speed and reach out to me directly if you have questions, but really we want to keep in the habit of listening to the community as we move into these next phases.
Thank you, Councilor Linehan. Councilor McDonald. Oh, Councilor McDonald, could you hit your light again for me, please? Thank you. There you go.
Thank you. I just want to say, you know, first that I'm excited about this project. I'm excited about this path forward. I really appreciate that the plan that we have here does significantly increase the natural space on the site. I mean, you see the big reduction in paved surfaces. The footprint of the building is quite a bit smaller. So I just think those things are really positive. I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, Ron. Is there more we need to understand about why these deals didn't really work out with trustees or the public trust? Like, is there something about the site that was really unexpected that we should know about?
Truly resource and all about resources. So, I mean, there was one gentleman that was sort of the Boston person for the Trust for Public Land that, you know, sat alongside of us and he left, right? And they don't have a whole Boston organization, right? So the person that was with us in a half a dozen meetings is no longer there, and they don't have anybody to replace him yet, and have just said, we don't have anybody that we can inject. It's really that simple. I can tell you up to that point in time, it was sort of complete confidence that, yeah, this is what we do, and like, don't worry about it. We'll take it, you know, we'll take it from here. So was disappointing, but, you know, it is what it is. But no, absolutely nothing to do with the site, purely 100% sort of resource-based. And we pushed as hard as we could. We had a call again last week, you know, with the mayor and the state senator's office, with another organization, and it's a people issue with both of them. They just don't have the capacity, and, you know, not just for this, but for other things too. So, you know, better to sit there. We do have, you know, we've got some great resources. Everybody knows Emily and Deb's office. She's already put together a 2-page memo with a bunch of different sources that are appropriate to pursue, you know, for this. So we're gonna hit the ground running, but we just didn't want anybody to be saying, wait a minute, what are we doing? I never sort of heard what path this was going down, you know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's very helpful. Thank you. And just, does the city's ownership of the space actually help with trying to sort out some of these different integrated uses of the park? I know this has been a big part of what community advocates have been talking about is, you know, the use of trails or play spaces or historical markers, or does that, you know, does it impact any of our ability to really have a robust community engagement process to counter Councilor Linehan's?
No, because we're going to get there. I think the thing we've got to.
Maybe it makes it easier. Maybe that's the answer.
Well, we were always going to, so it's a great question, because the two organizations have two different models. The one we were working with was a model that facilitated acquisition for us, and then they step away. The second one, which was, you know, a bit of a Hail Mary, but we figured it was worth pursuing, they more acquire and manage, but typically much larger pieces, right? So, you know, even though they weren't able to help us, I don't know if it was a fantastic fit with that model anyways, because the desire is for it to be a community-owned asset. And so the short answer is the plan has always been for us to own it and for the community to drive the programming of, you know, what it's going to be. I think the thing we've got to figure out is how to allow that process. We know that folks are anxious within the community to start that process sooner than later. So we need to figure out, you know, how to be able to work through the funding piece while not losing a lot of time, right? And we get that. I think that's what this agreement's going to be all about with them, is to try to figure out how to create some certainty, even as we recognize that some of these grants have, you know, some lead times and what have you. So that's what we'll be after.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, thanks for this update. I mean, I know as someone who helped work on getting the Community Preservation Act to Malden, you know, at the core of that whole effort was so many people from the Friends of the Fells. So, I mean, I think certainly that's something that I think we should all acknowledge as we're going forward, that, you know, I don't think it would have passed without the passionate effort of that group of people. So I'm definitely supportive of that and appreciate that. Just a couple, so the plan right now is focusing on acquisition in actually the, you know, the layout of the open space will then be another process and another cost or whatever, but the first thing is acquisition sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say acquisition, and before that, Counselor, an agreement that recognizes, so that certainly the goal is, I think their goal right now is sometime between now and April, maybe May, to have the application in before the planning board, right, for that permitting side, is that between now and then, we would have an agreement that memorializes the commitment on the space and the uncertain piece of it, which is the acquisition side, but hopefully in a way that allows us to then allow both to happen at the same time. So we just have to try to serve two masters at the same time if we can, but I think we'll be able to find a way to get there. So, you know, we don't want to wait till the very last day and then let the community development piece start, but there won't be any variable about if, it's just how.
Yeah. And then just a couple things. So in terms of the Medford, it's mentioned as the, you know, Tufts will remain the property owner in conservation. So the intent right now is that in conservation status, that's not just giving up development rights, it also make that land accessible to the public. Is that kind of so? And then just another question on the 21E. Has there been 21E assessments of the open space as well as part of it? I mean, I know a lot of things focus on asbestos in buildings and stuff like that. I mean, when I was working at the MRA, that's what I was doing down Commercial Street, where we had to both assess buildings, but then we also had to assess the land. Do we as a city know yet? I mean, I don't know, is there any potential that there was fill in the open space land? Is that anything we have to get a sense of? Is that some part of, has there been any testing beyond the development site? So just questions.
So testing's gone on for some time, but it's all been borings. And so soil samples are coming up. We're going to find out what is there. We imagine that because there was a pumping station there, there was, you know, a nurse's dormitory, there was a lot of other structures there, that there's going to be some contamination that we're going to need to clean up. We don't know the extent at this point, but we're going to be finding out very shortly.
So the 21E assessment is looking at any possible prior source, and so it's going through the, we're not just looking at the hospital site, it's like looking at all the acres, and if there's a suspected use that might have contributed. All right, so
Right.
that sounds like.
The borings have not just happened in the impervious areas, they've also happened in the areas that are now kind of urban wilds.
So, okay, so, all right, no, that's good. No, it was very, very exciting, and I mean, I know having, you know, when I was working in Gloucester, you know, they have a lot of trustees of reservation land. Even where they had 7 acres right next to a big reservation, they were reluctant to buy, so it's not, they're very conservative now about acquiring land, and, you know, trust for public land really would make the most sense, but as, you know, nonprofits are short in supply. So it's one of the things that, as a city, you know, we're a dilemma. Like in Essex County, there's something called Essex County Greenbelt, which is an aggressive land acquisition company. So unfortunately, in our area, there's no real land trust that focuses on, you know, Malden, Melrose, or whatever. So that's a challenge, that we just don't have a local organization doing this work. So it's hard to get a slot, and so we have to get through it. But, you know, happy to, you know, help out as I can. Thank you, great.
Councilor Cologne Hayes.
Thank you. So I attended the disability, when the Disability Commission had their presentation here, I attended, so I am full support of the project. I think it's fantastic. And also wanted to thank the Friends of Fellsmere Heights and other groups that advocate for open space. It's very important, so thank you for all your hard work. And I just had a couple of questions about so fiscally, losing some of the consultants and having it go to the Office of OSPCD. Timing-wise, I know that they have a lot of projects right now going on in there, and I'm concerned if something's going to be put on the background. How long do you think it would take for this process for them to take over and help with that? And will it cause a staffing shortage in their office?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that you're absolutely right. There are some challenges, you know, particularly I think everybody knows Evan's, you know, leaving, and that leaves a big gap for Deb. But relative to the grant side and Emily, you know, we've had conversations. She's already done research. You know, I don't think that that's the area that Deb's got the greatest challenge within her department. So we're meeting next week and that's why we wanted to have this meeting tonight, is so that we can kick off that and actually start the process, you know. And so I don't think so, Counselor. I think that, you know, I think they've got the capacity on this piece of it, even if they have challenges elsewhere.
Okay, even if, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're aware of that, because I know there's a lot of things coming down the road, and I would hate to have something pulled that we weren't planning on.
Yep.
And putting her in there. So the timeline now, does this do anything for the timeline, this change, and having to like do it in-house? Has that put the project back at all?
No, again, I think we now have to develop a timeline that deals with this agreement I spoke to earlier, and what we can cover through an agreement of the intent of where we're going to get to, what that allows us to do to start the neighborhood, you know, development process, and then figure out the timing of some of the grants that we're going to go after, when we would get answers, and how to marry it up again. So we really just have to come up with and it was always going to be a mismatch, even with the Trust for Public Land folks, because the grant cycles don't always line up. And, you know, Councilor Crowe knows, oftentimes you're a year or two away from when those are available, and yet, you know, we want to be able to get this open space piece over to be able to be controlled by us sooner than that. So we have to try to figure out just how to marry those two together. But that's not necessarily new, because it's just, either way, whether we were going after grants or they were going after them on our behalf, you know, you're sort of a little bit beholden to the timing of the funding sources that you're going after. And sometimes, you know, it's subscribed for that year, and you got to wait till the next year. So, you know,
Yeah,
we
it's
got to
just
figure
our
out.
time instead of somebody else's, the city's time. Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And then I just also want to say, whoever had brought in community groups, it's so important. That might have been Councilor Linehan, but it's really important to do that, and I hope to see that more on other projects where the community is involved. That's when you get the best projects. That's why they're getting a great open space project, because they they invited the people close to that community. So thank you for whoever did that.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and it's been said, but it's worth saying again, that if it's the neighborhood, the community, the groups who made their voices heard in prior proposals that resulted in, when Tufts stepped to the table with this proposal, proactively putting forward the open space piece rather than having to be drawn kicking and screaming to it, because it is that community feedback that they said, you know what, if we're gonna get the support we need, this has got to be a piece of it. So that's the only reason why I got
I would
there.
love to see it on all projects. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Madam President. Happy Valentine's Day. I don't have any technical questions, but I will say this, that I was on the council when the Malden Hospital closed. I think Councilor Condon and I were the only two that when the hospital closed. And the site, kind of stayed dormant for quite a while. So I just want to say, from listening to what you're saying and seeing it up here on the screen, I got to take my hat off to you. It's a wonderful project, and working on similar projects with you. I know it's in great hands, you and Councilor Lenahan, and Councilor Lenahan should be commended for putting this thing forward. And, I think it's going to be a great plan. And I don't get to get up in your neighborhood much up there. I get nosebleeds. But I'll come up there and visit once in a while. But, I just think that, the city of Malden really should be happy when they see projects like this going on. You covered all the bases here. And I'm really impressed with tonight's presentation. And I know it's in great hands. So, hey, have some fun with it. Thank you.
Councilor Spatafora.
It's always tough to follow, Councilor Simonelli.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to, I think, start where everybody's kind of left off and certainly address the friends of the Fellsmere Pond who have gone through. I think this was my third vote as a council when I first joined, was the first iteration of trying to develop that property, and thank God it fell through. Looking now at, I think, the new plan, which increased the amount of green space and passive, or somewhat passive, contribution to the neighborhood, which is so clearly needed. So my question is, from an ask perspective, I know you said try to serve two masters with this plan. For the benefit of the public, we're only talking about right now the land that will become trusted back to the use of the citizens of both Malden and Medford, and then the planning aspect of the hospital, which or the redevelopment, is a separate discussion which is happening through various committees. I know demolition process, there's gonna be a planning board. So just for, I think, the people watching TV and certainly the attendees here, those discussions, those requests, those conditions will be done at that side of the discussion. Right. And this is simply just the ask on the self-management portion of the open space, correct?
That's right, right.
And the plan is to try to get this land, right, deal or acquisition coordinated for the beginning of those discussions through the planning board, correct?
Yes, even if exactly how it's going to happen leaves some things open, that we have something, whether it's an MOU, a letter of understanding, something that allows us to be able to make everybody comfortable that this isn't something that may or may not happen. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of exactly what it looks like when it gets to the finish line.
So I'll be that guy, right? I'll ask. In the event that we can't get that understanding by then, for the benefit of the neighborhood, what happens? Would they push back the planning of it in terms of meeting, or would we have to, like, is there a timeline that, I know there's a timeline we'll try to get to, but in the event, not because of the potential redevelopment, but just because, like you said, you try to line up a series of events to get everything in a timely fashion, and there's been some hiccups on the way, not any part due to anybody in this room, but just because we've lost some people and those organizations don't have the manpower.
Yeah, Councilor, honestly, and you know me, I'm a cynic. I don't trust anybody, but I can tell you that these folks have been open, honest, and transparent about the fact that one way or the other, this land is coming over to the city. We'll come up with an agreement between now and when it goes before the planning board that makes that very clear to everybody. And that will put them probably a little bit at risk of some things, but I think that there's that trust, and Councilor Linehan knows. I mean, this was an incredibly collaborative process with folks that from day one have been, sort of comfortable putting themselves out there about the fact that there may not be a ton of leverage, but I think that's the reason why we'll all work to try to get them as far as they can get to, our recognizing that. So it will be there, whether it's that April or May meeting, between now and then, our focus will be on getting some agreement drafted that makes it very clear to the public that,
And I believe that, it's just, I had to ask the question, because I
Yeah.
think it's a fair question,
Yeah.
given, that property's been rolled around for, almost 20 years, and it's hopefully finding the light at the end of the tunnel, and I hope that the latest hiccups don't prevent at least those discussions going forward for both parties, right? Certainly, the residents want to use that land as soon as possible, and so does the ownership. I know that just given what's going on with calendars right now, I know it's tough for both, but that's exciting to hear. And then, that land, however it's formatted or controlled by, right, that will stay that way in perpetuity? It will not be determined based on ownership, right? Nothing, if they were to sell
we'll own
this-
it.
We'll own it
We
for
will own
perpetuity.
it the way we do any other
Okay.
piece of, call it parkland in the city. So we'll involve, sort of redrawing the parcel, deeding it over to us through the acquisition process that will get outlined, and we'll own it. It's a little tricky.
Deed
to figure-
restriction, and we'll own it.
We'll own it, yeah, there'll be.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, yep.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafor. Councilor Winslow for the second time.
Yeah, just a little more question, kind of about the financial, so I guess my question is that, we're trying to work out an agreement that will allow the planning and the permitting process to go forward, as we may undertake a several-year process to get the money together to buy that. So we're not anticipating, the actual, to put the shovel in the ground, that we might not have acquired the land at that point, but we'll have an agreement. So, I think that's, the financing for the hospital side of this stuff is not dependent on us cutting a check.
No.
That's kind of what you're working towards, yes.
Not at all, and
So,
in
yeah.
fact, Council, the goal will be, again, to get control of the land as early as possible to start the other effort, while not losing any leverage to go after the grants, because we've got control, right? So there's the tricky part, is if at the end of the day, they've signed something over to us, and then we're trying to pursue, sort of funding opportunities to at least try to get them some value for what got handed over. We don't want that to hurt us, right?
So it'd be kind of like an option with some timeframes and a dollar amount, so that's.
Something
that we gotta
creative
work
like that allows us
that,
to.
and then we have
Exactly.
some time to put together. And that's sort of, the trustees of, of public lands, sometimes they can come up with money to buy the land, and otherwise they're working
Yep.
creatively and that type of thing.
But kind of what you mentioned is the type of creativity we're going to have to come up with, which is something that allows us to be able to control it and then not lose the leverage on the funding sources, which might be lost if we already owned it and said, well, we're trying to ask you for money for something that we already own, and they go, well, you should have asked before you bought it.
Yeah, no, and there's the complexity of, there's some very rigorous appraisal requirements and other type of things for those grants. So, I think that's the type of thing that adds complexity that they want to, so that is the complexity, that there's anytime property over $100,000 is purchased, often you might need 2 appraisals, and there's a whole standard for, conservation land of appraisal.
Right.
So it's a higher standard than you might have for a residential appraisal or something like that.
And that's why, Councilor Mallory, when you asked the question about how much, it's not to be evasive, it's to say exactly what Councilor Winslow said. It'll somewhat be determined by the sources who would go after and some of the requirements that they may tell us on how we appraise it to use their money. So, but we know what the initial appraisals are.
Councilor Winslow, you? Okay. Councilor O'Malley for the second time.
And I apologize for getting right into the really tough questions earlier. I didn't expect to be the first one up, and I was still getting my thoughts together. But I do want to echo my colleagues. The fact that it's going to be a medical use that's really needed by our community, the fact that it's going to get us acres of open space. I do want to thank Tufts Medical, Mr. Curran, for your work, and and most to Councilor Linehan. This is a property that was set vacant for over 2 decades. And it took your presence and your ability to coordinate and collaborate to make this possible. So thank you so much for really putting the community first and making sure that we got a great project. Actually, one more question. So I've learned, being on the council, that parkland is actually designated by the legislature. So I know that we got Trafton Park. I know that this is going to be something, we might want to come up with a plan with the city solicitor to figure out how do we designate these things parks, because that does have an added level of protection that I think all of us here want to make sure that we ingrain, so that when future councils down the line decide they want to sell it off for a quick buck, it's going to be difficult for them to do that.
No, great point.
Okay, well, seeing no other questions, I think, Mr. Hogan, thank you for your
Thank you.
presence this evening. I'm sure you'll be back before us to tell us
See you
more
next
about
week on
this-
charter.
about this great project. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, just while we're waiting for the next thing, I did want to say that under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those in attendance, please be informed that Urban Media Arts will be filming this evening, as well as Steve McMorris. So there will be video and audio being conducted tonight, so just be aware of that. Thank you. Okay. And let's see. Next order of business, public comments.
So I had one email sent in to me, and I think there may have been a couple people who've signed in at the podium, but first I will read.
Lisa can grab it.
Thank you. So the first email, well, the only email that came in says, "My name is Lisette Alvarado, and I live at 492 Pleasant Street. I'm writing today in regards to docket item 46-23, tonight's executive session. Please accept my statement for the public record. I am asking that city councilors that hold liquor licenses within the city of Malden and/or have immediate family members that hold liquor licenses within the city of Malden recuse themselves from tonight's executive session. These personal ties pose a conflict of interest while discussing this specific litigation in this controversial topic." And then we have one person who has signed in, Prisco Tamara.
Good evening, Council President, Councilors, and Madam Clerk. I guess, thank you for the update, Tufts, this is the first update from the October meeting. We had another meeting in July. So it seems like the change is that originally they were providing us with the land, and now we have to buy it. I guess there was hopes on our end that they got a $6 million state bill to help with this, and I guess we were assuming that 2 to 4% of that would potentially help with a minimal park up there, benches. They did commit to sod on the open space that they're providing. They mentioned 3 acres. Maybe we'll talk later about exactly where that is. But a combination of that, they're bringing in Acadia, an $8 billion corporation, so we were hoping that they could provide some sort of funding. That didn't happen. We were hoping that Tufts, being that they've been the neighbor for 20-plus years and not a great one, trash dumping, construction debris, overdoses. It's been a really bad area to work with. But I'd like to discuss some of the parking. Even though they basically gave an update on the open space, their traffic study is going to come out soon. And it's hopefully they do reduce some of the parking, which they sort of implied. But assuming that they're going to, assuming if it's a regular parking study, they're going to keep the parking spots that they have there, combined with what they're trying to add, with what the nursing home has and with what they have at their Savin Street facility. That's almost up to 450 parking spots up on the hill there. And as a reference point, Stop and Shop parking lot is almost 550. And so basically, we're almost putting a Stop and Shop parking lot up there with this facility. And so I'm hoping that we can get your help in working with them and trying to reduce some of that count. Obviously, they need to have enough to do what they have to do, but this is the 3rd edition, and we still haven't seen a design for the 99. We still, they refuse to provide shuttle services for their employees, whether it's to the T or somewhere else. And so I think we still need to work on it, and April's coming up quick, and people get desperate when there's not a lot of time. So I ask for help in in still sharpening the pencil. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tamara. No further public comment?
Nope.
Okay, next order of business, please.
Order of business, approval of minutes. Paper 40-23, minutes for the meeting of January 17th. Paper 41-23, minutes for the meeting of January 24th. Paper 42-23, minutes for the meeting of February 7th, 2023.
Counselor Winslow.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Counselor Crowe. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. What? Oh, okay. Okay.
Next order of business, paper 43-23, petition, taxi cab license for Malden Trans Incorporated of 290 Eastern Avenue Renewal, 11 vehicles.
On Counselor Seeker's motion to refer to the License Committee, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The petition is referred to license. Next order of business, please. Let's see, we
Paper
have-
45-23, resolve that it is the sense of the City Council that they wish to invite representatives from Malden Reads to present their One City, One Book reading selection for 2023, They Called Us Enemy by George Takei.
On Counselor Crow's motion to approve the resolve, seconded by Counselor Hayes, Cologne Hayes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We will see Malden Reads on February 28th. Okay. Really? Oh, goodness. Okay, next order of business. Let's see where we are. Okay. We are going to, although the docket says the next order of business is executive session, we are going to move that to the end of the docket so that we can go to executive session and let everyone know that when we come out, we will be adjourning. So we're going to skip over this particular docket item and move it to the end.
Assuming you get the votes to go into executive session.
Right, yes, fine.
Okay, so we're going to go right to the communication then, yes? Paper
Yes, we're going
47.
right to the communication.
Paper 47-23, communication. The planning board to whom was referred paper 516-22, having considered the same at the joint public hearing of Planning Board Rules and Ordinance Committee on January 11th, present the following recommendation that the City Council approve the amendment as proposed.
On Councilor Crow's motion to receive and place the communication on file, seconded by Councilor Seeker. All those in favor? Opposed? The communication is received and filed.
Paper 516-22, be it hereby ordained by the Malden City Council that the Code of the City of Malden, 12.12.300 G3, inclusionary zoning, is hereby amended by striking and including the following language regarding fractional units.
Okay, on Councilor Crow's motion to on Councilor Crow's motion to receive the committee report.
Oh, we did that.
Oh.
Now she's going to speak on the paper.
Councilor Crow's motion to speak on the paper.
No, we did.
It is,
We received the communication, and now you're speaking on paper 516.
okay. Okay, my goodness, we got a tough crowd here tonight. I know, my goodness. Okay.
Thank you, Madam
Councilor Crowe.
President. And so, you know, as the communication spoke about on January 11th, that we did have the Planning Board and Ordinance Committee joint meeting. And really what this is as we're starting to look at projects that include inclusionary zoning, this is where you kind of have to tweak some of these things to make sure that it works correctly. Because the way that it is that, I think actually, there is a wonderful example that was used in the communication from the planning board, that if a total dwelling unit in inclusionary zoning development was 24, the required affordable housing pieces would be 3.6. So, and that's it. So they have to pay they do the 3, and then for the 0.6, it is the current fee in lieu of. but it doesn't allow you to round up and not have the fee. So if they did 4, they still have to pay for the partial portion. So the way that this would change is they can round down to the nearest number, so it'd be 3, and then pay the current fee in lieu of, or they could round up to the next whole number and not have to pay that portional fee. Which does really encourage more people to round up and have more affordable housing units rather than round down and pay into something. So the planning board, Michelle Romero is here, if she has anything to add, but voted unanimously to pass this. So if there's no questions, or we could ask questions, I'd make a motion to enroll.
Yeah, I would second that. It's a very sensible tweak to what we did. Thanks.
Counselor Cologne Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Condon. Yes. Counselor Crowe.
Yes.
Counselor Linehan. Yes. Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor Seega.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli. Yes. Counselor Spatafora. Yes. Counselor Winslow. Yes. Council President Murphy.
Yes. Paper's been enrolled.
I would actually like to make a motion to suspend docket rules for the purposes of ordaining, since, as Council Winslow said, it is pretty self-explanatory and makes perfect sense.
Okay. Actually, Councilor O'Malley already seconded it, so on Councilor Crow's motion to suspend docket rules for the purpose of ordaining, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Counselor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Counselor Condon. Yes. Counselor Crowe.
Yes.
Counselor Linehan. Yes. Counselor McDonald. Yes. Counselor O'Malley. Yes. Counselor Seega. Yes. Counselor Simonelli. Yes. Counselor Spatafora. Yes. Counselor Winslow. Yes. Council President Murphy.
Yes.
I make a motion to ordain.
On Councilor Crow's motion to ordain, seconded by Councilor Winslow, the clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Counselor Condon. Yes. Counselor Crowe.
Yes.
Counselor Linehan. Yes. Counselor McDonald. Yes. Counselor O'Malley. Yes. Counselor Seega. Yes. Counselor Simonelli.
Councilor Simonelli.
Counselor Spatafora. Yes. Counselor Winslow. Yes. Council President Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next order of business, please.
Hang on 1 second here. Give me just a second, please. Paper 48-23, communication. Per the requirements of MCC 2.04.030, the Malden Housing Authority respectfully submits their MHA Board-approved 2023 annual report.
Okay, on Councilor, who would like to make a motion to put it on file? On Councilor O'Malley's motion to place the report, the communication on file, seconded by Councilor Crowe. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Communication has been received and filed.
Paper 49-23, committee report. The Standing Committee on License, to whom was referred papers 5, 15, and 16 of 2023. Having considered the same, make the following report, that the petitions be recommended out favorably.
On Councilor Seeker's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Councilor Seeker for the committee.
Do you want to read them before we discuss them? Read the papers?
Do you want me to read the papers?
Yes, please.
Paper 5-23, petition. Class 2 license for Uni Auto Center, Inc. of 369 Salem Street, renewal 20 cars. Paper 15-23, petition, livery license for Stephanie Lacona of 205 Bryant Street, renewal 1 vehicle. Paper 16-23, petition, livery license for Stephen N. Onswed of 61 High Rock Road, renewal 1 vehicle.
The License Committee met over the last few weeks to discuss these 3 petitions. There were no issues, or they're all renewals, so the committee unanimously voted to approve all three. So a motion to grant.
Okay, on Councilor Seeker's motion to grant, seconded by Councilor Simonelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The petitions have been granted.
Paper 50-23, Committee Report. The Standing Committee on Personnel and Appointments, to whom was referred Paper 276, Series of 2022, having considered the same, make the following report. Committee recommends that this appointment be recommended out favorably to the full council.
On Councilor Linehan's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Councilor Linehan for the committee.
Do you want to read the paper?
I'll read the paper, please.
Paper 276-22, mayoral appointment, Stephanie Stone of 19 Pine Street, Malden, as an associate member of the Planning Board. Said term to commence upon confirmation by the City Council and expire March 1st, 2024, to complete the unexpired term of Charles Ferguson.
Councilor Linehan.
Thank you, Madam President. So the committee met last week to interview Stephanie Stone, who's a Ward 3 resident. She would be coming on as an associate member of the Planning Board, which is not, sort of a, helps meet quorum when there isn't a full membership present. It's a great learning opportunity. We had a great conversation with her. Her background is in legal and contracts, but she has a deep interest in kind of the planning issues that come before the city, and we recommended unanimously that we recommend her favorably to fill this unexpired term, so I'd make a motion that we confirm.
On Councilor Linehan's motion to confirm, seconded by Councilor Cologne Hayes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? She has been confirmed.
So we are now going back to paper 46 to vote for executive session.
Thanks.
Okay.
My page is
Paper 46-23, order that the City Council meet with legal counsel in executive session.
I just have one matter I wanted to do before executive session. I wanted to make a motion to untable paper 2023.
Okay. We talked about that happening, yeah.
2023. This was the pesticide?
Yeah, he made some updates and he submitted some comments to the EPA that he wants to talk about. And
Okay.
maybe we can vote in support of what he's explaining.
Read the paper
Okay,
as is
yes,
together.
please.
Okay, so we're making a table motion to pull. First, we have to take it off the table before we can discuss it.
So on Councilor Winslow's motion to take paper 2023 off the table, seconded by Councilor O'Malley. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Paper is off the table.
Paper 2023, resolve, be it hereby resolved that it is the sense of the City Council that the Massachusetts Senate and House must enact during the current legislative session, HD 577 and SD 1144, an act relative to pesticides. According to the MSPCA Angel Animal Hospital, second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, SGARs, are a type of poison used for rodent control that work by stopping the blood clotting processes causing lethal hemorrhage. SGARs have been extensively used for rodent control, allowing secondary exposure and poisonings in non-target wildlife species such as birds of prey that mainly feed on rodents or small birds. SGARs are prohibited for residential consumer purchase in the Commonwealth, but commercial use is allowed for licensed pesticide companies when hired to deal with rodent problems.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I know we had a discussion of this, and Galvin Murphy from Yankee Pest Control came in, and we had a good conversation about his concerns, and I did a little bit more research because I didn't really understand what the bill numbers and all that was, but based on some of the input from Galvin, one of the things, there's an EPA comment period that we have an opportunity, and the legislature is also considering it, and what I really did was I rewrote Councilor O'Malley's resolution to be more kind of in the vein where Mr. Murphy, really just setting out that we would be commenting to make sure that these kind of class 2 rodenticides, second generation, are really used by professional pest control firms. So that was my proposal, is to submit an amendment for the resolution, and then we adopt that, and then we would be submitting, I've actually already submitted the comments because of the comments were due yesterday, but, and we couldn't bring this up because we had to cancel a meeting, so I just did that, but we also, the bills are before the legislature, so I could read my proposed amendment, and then we could go from there. So,
I was actually going to ask you to do that because it is not attached to the docket.
Okay,
Our city clerk
so
just
I can read
informed
it,
me,
so,
so if
okay.
you would read it for the
All
general
right,
public.
so I will read it.
And ourselves.
So resolve, be it hereby resolved that the Malden City Council hereby expresses its concern that the indiscriminate use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, SGARs, has resulted in the secondary exposure in Malden to both domestic pets as well as non-target wildlife, such as squirrels and birds of prey that feed on rodents and small birds. The council hereby supports the US EPA proposed interim determination that classifying all SJARs as restricted use pesticides so as to ban their retail sales directly to consumers and limiting their use to only licensed pest control professionals, and 2, adding more restrictive handling and use protocols for professionals to follow. Furthermore, the council calls on the state legislature to require electronic tracking of their use and expands the list of the institutions required to use integrated pest management practices to include universities. The council directs the council president and city council clerk to take actions necessary to send a copy of this resolution along with the attached photos to the US EPA public comment portal and to forward the same to the Malden state delegations. That was my proposed amendment, so we would just strike what Councilor O'Malley had and put that in its place. So I think it fulfills what I think everybody was very concerned about these pesticides, but I think, you know, the Councilor O'Malley's resolution was a little off, so that was my suggestions.
Councilor O'Malley.
So I just want to thank Councilor Winslow for doing this. He did take the time to go through. We did look up the new bill numbers, so to Councilor McDonald's point, the bill numbers did change. So I do appreciate it. Councilor Winslow did submit it to the EPA. So I would be in support of amending what was originally written and kind of ratifying the fact that he submitted it yesterday, because that's when the deadline ended, unfortunately. So did you make a motion?
So you want to?
I would just like, I would.
So I was making a motion with his amendment, I guess we're looking for a second.
So I would second Councilor Winslow's motion and without stifling any debate.
Yes, Councilor Seeger. Oh, 1 second.
Thank you, Council President. Quick question. I was absent for this meeting. I was sick that week. Was Gavin Murphy the only resident that came to speak on this paper? And he's okay with this? He suggested what he did. Okay. I just want to make sure, because if not, then maybe we should just put the new resolve on the agenda and vote on it a different evening. But as long as Gavin Murphy, I remember him being here. I came in for committee meetings that night and left because I was sick. But I just want to make sure that we give the public enough notice that we weren't necessarily taking this up, and it seems like something that would be important. So as long as it was just Mr. Murphy that came and spoke on this paper, then I'm okay with voting on it tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Condon.
Yes, it's right along those lines. You met with Galvin Murphy to go over the changes you were looking for?
I haven't shared this with Galvin, but based on his comments, he mentioned that the USEP.
Oh, sorry, one second.
He mentioned during his comments that the US EPA was basically considering regulating these pesticides itself, and that's really the authority that they regulate pesticides. So he thought the best thing to do would be put comments, and so basically, this is mimicking what Galvin said at the public comment, that the EPA was already considering basically regulating these and requiring that, right now, you could go to a hardware store and get these. Now you'd have to work through a professional, pesticide applicator, and they would have some more rigorous protocols. So he was supportive of that, and that was what, this is basically reflecting that. But I think it's, also taking, Councilor O'Malley's statement that we should be speaking about this because we've been having problems in our community with these. So I think it's merging what, Councilor O'Malley's thrust, but also taking into account, Galvin Murphy's comments about what was most sensible to make the comment on. So I think I didn't follow up with Galvin, but it was really, I did speak to him after the meeting, and and I tried to work to take that into account.
Thank you.
Councilor O'Malley, 1 second, let me just get you over here. Oops.
Yeah, and we had tabled it 2 weeks to the meeting that was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago. And it was specifically related to the comments that he had said that, this really should be channeled through the EPA. And then Councilor Winslow, took it, took the lead and really made sure that he incorporated those comments.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Okay, I actually have a question. So are we just ratifying the fact that Councilor Winslow has put the comments into the EPA, or are we also voting on a resolve that we're sending to?
I think it'd be.
Is it both? Is it? Okay, that's what I just wanted, so it's not just ratifying what the comments that went to the EPA, we're actually sending something, we're actually sending the resolve to the State House.
I believe that's the second part of it, yeah.
Yeah, I basically sent a draft of the resolve to EPA and said, this is my comments, but, it's before the council tonight. And then we would also just send the resolve to the state.
Okay, I just want to make sure there's two pieces. What we're saying is there's two pieces to this. Okay. Okay. So.
So I think it's an amendment.
So.
I think the actual motion is to pass the resolve as amended.
Yeah.
And you'll send me the language?
We need to vote on the amendment, yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's why I said as amended, but we can take two different votes.
Vote to amend and then pass.
Pass resolve. Okay. Correct. I heard that gravelly voice down there. So, on Councilor Winslow's motion to amend, as stated, read, seconded by Councilor O'Malley.
Do you want a roll call?
Roll call.
Okay.
Just a regular voice vote, right?
All right. All right, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? On Councilor Winslow's motion to pass the resolve as amended, seconded by Councilor O'Malley, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? The resolve has been passed. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, now back to, where are we? I got myself. No, I lost my place. Okay, 4623.
Order, paper 46-23, order that the City Council meet with legal counsel in executive session in regard to Benevolent Botanicals v. City of Malden under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, as such discussion in open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the city's litigating position, and to admit Maria Louise, Special Assistant to the Mayor.
Councilor Cologne Hayes for the paper.
Thank you. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just wanted to go in, get an update. It's been a couple of months since the last time we had an update. Just think it's good that we all hear the same thing in a room together, so we're all not getting bits and pieces. I know that I could call the city solicitor, but I just think it's a good idea to get an update. That's it.
Councilor Sika.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to go on the record in stating that I will not be voting to go into executive session this evening. last time that we requested to go in executive session for benevolent botanicals was on October 25th. It was just about 3 months ago. And this is my 10th year as a city councilor in this wonderful city. And this is only, city councilors usually don't ask to get updated on litigation cases in executive session. When the city solicitor's office has updates, they actually request through the council president to have an executive session. So I agree, actually, with the public comment that was sent in today from Ms. Alvarado. I do believe there is a conflict of interest, but I don't think it's from Councilor Spatafora's family members owning a liquor license or possessing a liquor license. I think that we, and I've been saying this for months, that we're sliding down a slippery slope. There's 17 active litigation cases in this city, and for some reason, Councilor Colon-Hayes, you're only interested in this one.
No, I called.
So there could
one
be a
for the
person,
police.
excuse me, I have the
Yes.
floor.
Yep, you do.
So I think that the conflict of interest here actually might be you. And I don't feel comfortable going into executive session to discuss something that nobody else is supposed to know what we're discussing in there when you may actually have the conflict of interest. So I will be voting no on this, and I hope that my fellow councilors do as well, because there's no reason to go into executive session. If there was, then the city solicitor's office would be asking us to go into executive session for an update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
So I agree with Councilor Sika in part, that, you know, we don't get litigation updates very regularly. And I think that should happen more often. You know, we used, when I first got on the council, we got litigation updates pretty regularly. And at some point, we stopped getting updates on litigation and instead started to get emails sometimes. But and in that circumstance, we really can't ask questions via email because it's an open meeting law violation. So I do think that it makes sense to get more regular updates on litigation. I didn't know we had 17 outstanding cases. You know, I do think that maybe having quarterly updates on litigation is probably a good thing. The city solicitor actually helped me learn how you kind of look at some things online to see what's kind of happening in terms of the docket. I'm not opposed to getting an update. I don't know if something has happened on this specifically. I don't know if things have happened on other cases. But I do think more frequent updates on litigation is helpful. So I will second Councilor Colon-Hayes' motion, but that's just because I think that we should be getting more regular updates for litigation. Thank you.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, you know, I've been on the council 5 years now, and I guess, you know, especially the first 3 or 4 years, we were getting, I mean, probably had executive session every couple months on key cases and that type of thing. So it's been a little dearth, and I want to read the rules of professional conduct, Rule 1.4, communication. So this is the Mass, you know, ethics code for lawyers. A lawyer shall promptly inform the client of any decision or circumstance with respect to which the client's informed consent, as defined by Rule 1.0, is required by these rules. Reasonably consult with the client about the means by which the client's objectives are to be accomplished. Keep the client reasonably informed about the status of the matter. Promptly comply with the reasonable request for information, and consult with the client about any relevant limitation on the lawyer's conduct when the lawyer knows the client expects assistance not permitted by the rules of professional conduct. So I think, you know, there's an ethical obligation for our attorneys to communicate with the client. And I mean, we know that there's rulings that are in court. I don't expect everything to happen, but I just feel that for whatever reason, I don't feel as informed as I should be as someone who's one of 11, you know, people who are sort of the client here. So I think that's, you know, I feel I should be more informed. And it's reasonable for clients to ask their attorneys, because it's actually the lawyer's ethical obligation to keep us informed. There's important motions that are out there, and so that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that I feel that it's okay just to get an update to understand where these litigations are. You know, that's kind of where I come from. It's actually, I feel it's an obligation. I feel like, as you know, I'm not as informed as I should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with more frequent updates on, you know, the 17 cases, but Council President, through you, I'd like to ask the city solicitor a question, if I can. Sorry to put you on the spot, sir. I just, again, I think I agree with having maybe more frequent updates, and we can discuss that. In regards to this resolve to go into executive session, since we were in executive session in October, do you think that there is any substantial updates that really should require an executive session tonight on this particular case?
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
There has been no change, except the adversary sent a letter to many people, including city councilors and the mayor, demanding some sort of settlement, which there is no power to do because the status of the ordinances haven't changed, and therefore the last time I gave a status, nothing's changed. Okay. Nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. So I'm a little confused on this because we have a paper here that's talking about going to an executive session as far as to see where the lawsuit is and how, you know, the strategy is that you're going to defend it, which I think you'll do a great job. But I don't understand with the two. Then there's this, I don't know, I'm confused. There's an email about something about Councilor Spatafora. Are we going in an executive session to talk about that email with Councilor Spatafora? I don't know why you confused me. Somebody did. I don't know why they're together. But I'm going to be clear. I would like to go into executive session to discuss this topic. And, you know, I think I've been clear in the past on the ordinance in itself, because I just want to see where it's going, what you think about it, because this has been going on before I came on the council. So, you know, I'd like to be more informed too, but I don't want to go in executive session if we're going to go in and talk about Councilor Spatafora and liquor licenses and stuff. Absolutely not. So I guess you can answer me that question. Do they have anything to do with one another here? Because I don't know why they're together here on the topic.
The order that was put before you.
No, I see it, but
has nothing to do with Councilor Spatafora.
All right, so if we vote to go in executive session, it's not going to be about Councilor Spatafora and how many liquor licenses that he don't have.
It has to be about the issue that's stated on your agenda.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm glad Councilor Crowe asked him that question. The way I look at it, if you, say you submitted for summary judgment,
It's
like
been
near
done
the
in
end
this
of the
case.
year, that's a change to me, all right? If there was a decision on that, I would expect you to call us in. If there was anything going on and the judge had made a decision other than this is an ongoing case of litigation and you're saying that there's been no changes, I mean, I understand Councilor Simonelli wasn't here prior to January, but knowing Councilor Simonelli, I'm sure he's got a pretty good idea. When you say there's been no changes, I think he probably understood the way this case has been filed and why. So I don't think we need to go into executive session if you're saying there's been no changes.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Thank you. So I have the right to call for executive session whenever I want. So let's just be clear about that. There's no conflict of interest, and I'm calling to get an update. I would be willing to change this because I was going to, and give me some grace here, it is going into my second year. I was going to see if we could get together, because now I'm hearing there's 17. I did know that there was other lawsuits out there, so I definitely think that we should be meeting more. And no, it's nothing on you. I think we need to have more communication about that going forward. So I could change this to say just an update. That's fine too. But I definitely wanted an update on this particular case just for what you were talking about. Stuff has been going around. I wanted to hear it straight from you with all of us in here. So there's none of this he said, she said. I'm not even sure about what email they were talking about. I guess I didn't get one. But to not want to go into executive session over something, that's what I would get concerned. To want to go in and listen and hear from, our city solicitor makes sense. To say you don't, that's a little sketchy. So the conflict of interest, you're right, it could be somewhere else. But there was no discussion of Councilor Spatafora. It was just exactly what I put here. So if you're saying there's nothing to discuss, I'm willing not to go in there. But I have to say, I think it's the wrong idea. I think we just need an update. And even if you went back there and told us that, and I might have had a couple of other questions, we could ask them. It's transparency. We should be open and not pushing back on wanting to hear updates. I don't understand it. Makes no sense. But thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I didn't mention the 17 litigation cases to put the law department under fire. And I'm not going to stand up here and defend them, but for the last 3 years, we've been in COVID. Some of these court cases have been at a standstill. They don't need to come before the city council if there's nothing going on. That's a waste of their time and a waste of our time, to be quite honest. So if a city solicitor is standing up here telling us there is no update on this case, there's no need for us to vote to go into executive session tonight. We're going to take time to go in the back, everyone gets situated, for him to say no update. Because there's nothing else you're going to be able to talk about. We're not going to be able to talk about the ordinance that Councilor Simonelli mentioned, because that would be violating the open meeting law. It's something that needs to be discussed in the public. We can't have that conversation in executive session. There's only certain things that we're allowed to go into the back to have a discussion on. And the email that Attorney McNaught is discussing, it was an email, it was a registered letter, and it was a letter mailed to you on a constructive approval. And that doesn't even warrant us to go into executive session. So I didn't mean to put a fire under poor McNaught's office with the litigation, but if they have no updates to give us, there's no reason for us to go into executive sessions. So unfortunately, he's standing right out here and telling us that we shouldn't be going into executive session. So I am voting no. Thank you.
In final time, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of settlement requests, so that's news to me. There was a mention of some type of settlement request. I wasn't aware of that, but that does sound like something that we should be informed about. The same way, we've settled cases before, and you did mention the constructive approval thing. That's a great other example of how does that impact the litigation. I'm not quite sure, probably not something we should have a conversation here in public about. But yeah, I can see why there would be a need to at least have some of these questions answered.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, listen, I agree. I mean, the city's attorney's up here, he says he has nothing to report to us, so I agree, we shouldn't be going in executive session. But I'm just confused, like, with those two papers, what we were actually going in executive session for. And there's not an update. I agree, that'd be foolish to go in executive session if there's not an update, and he's standing right here telling us that. I agree. And I think that maybe I jump a little too early too, because I do still want to talk about the zoning, the ordinance, the zoning itself, because, you know, I do have some things that I want to say and talk about that I wasn't able to. And I think I brought those things up. But this isn't the time or the place, and, you know, well, it's the place, but not the time. So, you know, I just wanted to make sure that, like, what we were going to go in executive session for, I think has been made clear here tonight. The attorney comes up here, and I think we shouldn't really talk about it anymore and just put it to a vote, because we don't want to violate anything. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of returning to the rules of professional conduct. I mean, what, I'm seeing, the second rule, this is reasonably consult with a client about the means by which the client objectives are to be accomplished. I've never been consulted about what our objectives is in this lawsuit. I don't know if the council really has an objective, and so that's really what I want to discuss. I want to understand a bit about, the strengths of our defense here. I mean, typically, whenever we get sued, the objective as an attorney is to defend it. So I want to know, I want to get a sense of that. How strong is our, case? I mean, that's the type of thing. That's what I want to know. That's part of what attorneys want to do. So I just want to know what this means. Is this something that we have a strong case for or not? So that's really where I'm coming from, is that I want to hear that directly from our attorney in that private session. And that's why we have executive sessions, to understand the risk of the case. Having gone to law school, you can make arguments. There's various judgments. You look at precedents. How strong are the precedents that support our strategy here? That's kind of where I just want to get a sense of that. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is it. I just wanted to also point out that in the resolve, I put to discuss strategy. So that's getting to a little bit of what Councilor Winslow was talking about. Not only just an update, you might not have any updates, but I would like to know what our strategy is, moving forward. And again, not just on this case, I'd like to know them on all, but I know I can't because this is the only one I put in there, but we will discuss later having updates regularly because I think it's a great idea. So this was also not just for updates, to just see what our strategy is moving forward. And from, a financial point, there's reasons why we're city councilors. We're elected by the people of Malden to ask these questions. That's it. So I just wanted to hear about that. I'll still put it forward so we can talk strategy. And thank you for getting up here and saying that there's nothing new. That's great too. But I'd like to, discuss a little more so we could just put it to a vote and see how it goes.
I just want to say for the record, I'm always happy to support any of my colleagues who want to ask confidential questions of our legal department. I'm happy to listen. And so I would just ask that we move to a vote on this. We probably spent more time talking about whether we're going to go into executive session than we would have ever have spent in executive session.
Exactly.
And next time there's something like this, I would just encourage us to, think about how we want to spend our time. So I would love to vote on whether we're going to do this or not.
Thank you.
Okay, citing exemption 3 on MGL C30A, section 21A, we are discussing paper 429-22 in open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the city's litigating position on Councilor Cologne Hayes' motion to enter into executive session, seconded by Councilor Malley. The clerk will now call the roll.
Yep, so I just wanted to confirm that I have a typo on your notes, and so it's actually paper 46-23, going into...
Oh, 46-23.
Sorry about that, that's on me, but everything else you said was perfect. So now the vote, Karen Cologne, Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon.
This is the vote to go into executive session.
Councilor Crowe. Councilor Linehan. Councilor McDonald. Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Seega.
No.
Councilor Simonelli. Councilor Spatafora. No. Councilor Winslow. Yes. Council President Murphy.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It fails 6 to 5.
So we will not be going into executive session. With that, I believe the docket is clear. The docket is clear for, would anyone like personal privilege? Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely, yes. We're all going to rise for a moment of silence, please. One more.
So as we know, there was a really devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria this past week that has killed tens of thousands of people. It's really quite astonishing. One of the locations that it occurred is in like the ancient city of Antioch. These are places that have been around for millennia, and the buildings and the people trapped, they're still finding people alive, they're still finding victims. It is quite shocking. I just want to take a moment of silence for the people in Turkey and Syria, as well as Malden residents who may be related to some of the individuals who are victims of that tragedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Just, the last update I read, it was over 24,000 dead, and that was a couple of days ago, so God only knows what the number is now, so. All right, personal privilege, Councilor Cologne Hayes.
Thank you. I just want to say happy Valentine's Day out there to anyone. And again, not just a romantic love, but love of family, love of life, love of Malden, so your pets, whatever it is. So I hope everybody's having a great night. And then I also just want to say I hope that anyone listening was paying attention to who wants to be updated on the financial businesses and lawsuits in this city and who doesn't. So with that, have a good night.
Thank you, Councilor Hayes. Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say that Friday evening, we had a Valentine's Day dinner for the folks down at Suffolk Manor, and I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers that come out to help out, and I want to thank Sung Kong Restaurant for the Chinese food that they delivered. It was excellent. I want to thank the people that live down at Suffolk Manor. I mean, it was a wonderful time, except they did say that I forgot the music. They wanted to have a dance, so I guess that's next. But it was a great time. We got to hand out, chocolate hearts and, lollipops and fruit and all kinds of things that we gave out, and they really seemed like they had a good time. We put it on Facebook. I think it'll be on The Advocate this week, and, it's nice once in a while to just kick back and listen to the seniors and, what's going on in their world, because as we know that, COVID really kind of caught them up and shut them in. So, it's nice to go and see how they're doing and, post-COVID, and see if we can get them back into the swing of things. So this is like the second party that we done. The first one we did like a luau, and Councilor Spatafora was down there helping put that thing together. So the mayor came to Friday night's event, and it really was a good time, and I want to just thank everybody, and I look forward to doing the next one. So thank you very much, and happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Love.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, just following up a little bit on the moment of silence for Turkish and Syrian people. I had the privilege of going to a fundraiser this weekend for the Syrian American Medical Association. This is a personal friend has been, we've actually been meeting with this group because all the refugees in Syria, because of the civil war in Syria, and so they're a group of Syrian refugees that have come to America, doctors who go and provide services there. So my friend came up with the idea. She's been doing this fundraiser and said, this is a great way. So that if you're looking for some way to contribute for a group that's already been there, that was a great group, Syrian American Medical Association. I can pass that along. So that was a nice way. Saturday for me was very busy. We started off at the Salem Woods School, so I appreciate Councilor McDonald and Councilor Spatafora made it down to our future of Maplewood Square visioning session. We had a great group of 31 students from Boston University there, meeting with residents, walking through Maplewood Square, and then sitting down with residents talking about what people really think they like about Maplewood Square, what they want to see improved. So that's all information they're taking up. And if people want to be further engaged, our next meeting is Monday, February 27th, 7 p.m. at the Salem Woods School. So that's another way to have some further input on that. So hopefully we'll see more folks out there. And otherwise, happy Valentine's Day. Oh, the Valentines are being broken out. Thanks so much. So I only put some thin mints out there. But thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. All right. Love bug. Love bug.
Council Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam.
I will. Hold on a second. I don't know what just happened here. There we go. Okay. I know. I'm just trying to get it a little bit bigger so my eyes can see it. Thank you. There we go.
All right, thank you, Counselor. Yeah, it was a busy week. I want to first wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. I actually just realized it's my Aunt Donna, who's Billy Spatafora's wife's birthday, so happy birthday to my Aunt Donna. Second, it was a very busy weekend in the city of Malden. I attended Councilor Winslow's event. But before that, my daughter participates, along with Councilor Linehan's daughter, in a basketball program put on by Joe Levine and the entire rec center. I can say that it's a godsend just to get my child out in the winter months to play and exercise, so it's great. But more importantly, this Saturday they recognized, which I didn't realize, that this program for this age group, because they've started younger children this year, has been going on 30 years. So there was a small event and dedication, which I believe the mayor, put on his social media. But I do want to call out and recognize that Coach Brown, which is Dana Brown, Levine, a gentleman named Coach George, I don't know his first name, and then Coach Gilligan. What is it?
George's Buddy Arthur. That's Buddy Arthur. That's George Arthur. That's his nickname, Buddy.
No, it's a different one. Buddy Arthur wasn't there.
Joyce and Gilligan.
It was definitely not him. But those four individuals have been doing this for 30 years, and it's volunteer. And if you really want to see what Malden is made up about, you look at those four individuals. There's over, I think, 300 or 400 kids on that Saturday. I just want to recognize those four individuals. They're not getting paid. They've done it out of the kindness of their heart. And the amount of young ladies there, because it was 30 years, a lot of the kids that they coached came back for a photo op, and they're young ladies in their 20s and 30s, and they have families now. So it was just nice to see that. This is my youngest daughter, so I'm not that old to have a kid that old. So it was nice to see that participation at that level. And I think it's warranted of a great thank you. And then finally, we had the Chinese Happy New Year celebration down the square. Council O'Malley was there as well. It was quick, did the roll and rally, but it was always great to see the performance by the Dragon Dance, and they give out the fruit and all the good luck. So Happy New Year. It's the year of the rabbit. I just want to say it was great to participate in that event as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafora. Councilor McDonald.
Just wanted to wish everybody a happy Black History Month. And the city has a Taste of Freedom event. I actually don't know anything about this event, and I'm out of town. But it is Wednesday, the 22nd, 3 to 5 p.m., and it lists the Malden City Council as a sponsor. So maybe someone knows more about this event than I do, but it's on the city's Facebook page. Maybe that means the city council chambers. It probably means the city council chambers. And I understand this is probably about African-American history, despite the predominance of African flags on the image, but I hope it's a great event. I appreciate the city's attention to that. Yeah, there is, yeah, thanks for that, Steve. There will also be a public hearing in the middle of the afternoon, because that's when the Department of Public Utilities allows us to schedule public hearings.
Very convenient.
At 2 p.m. About our Malden Community Electricity Plan. So I'll make sure that I get information to Lisa to share with the council about how you can submit public comment and encourage people to do the same. It's just very helpful to get folks to even send a quick note, submit it into the record so the DPU knows there's broad community support, and hopefully they will approve it soon. So I'll follow up with Lisa to make sure you all get the email about that hearing. Thank you.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. I want to wish my mom a happy Valentine's Day. My mom is from Everett. My dad was from Medford. They actually met at the Chateau de Ville, which I think was also called the Palace. Never actually went to it. Dropped some friends off, but I never actually went inside before it was knocked down. Ever. Yeah, I don't know. I was lame. And they decided to start a family in the middle, and they came to Malden, where they raised me. Tomorrow would have been my dad's 73rd birthday. So Mom, I love you. Happy Valentine's Day. And Councilor Simonelli has given you some chocolates that I'll bring home. Thank you, Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you. I think we definitely can regift. So, just from the chair, if I may, there was a lot of discussion a minute ago about executive sessions and update from the legal department. And what I will say to the group is that I will work with Attorney McNaught to come up with a schedule to have him come down and give us updates on litigation on a more regular basis, even if it's to tell us there's nothing to give us. But I do think that, as Councilor McDonald said, we need to be very, conservative about, not conservative, but we need to really look at our time and our time management and how we move forward with things. So although it was a vote not to go into executive session tonight, I don't think it was a vote that, I don't think it was a vote for councilors who did not vote to go into executive session not to want an update. Okay, so I didn't appreciate that comment. It was a vote that we had our attorney sitting in front of us saying that on that particular subject matter, there was no update. So therefore, it was not appropriate to go into executive session. So I think if we end on a good note here, what we'll do, we'll walk away from this knowing that there is an obligation, as Councilor Winslow pointed out, for the city solicitor's office to come down and speak with us on a more regular basis about what's going on. And I will make sure that that happens, and we'll do it in, group what needs to be discussed into one session so that we can get the updates that we need as they're appropriate. So anyway, having said that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Councilor O'Malley, seconded by Councilor McDonald. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?